What happens when the man who owns the store ends up bagging your groceries without you knowing who he really is? Miles Booker hadn't stepped foot in store 11 in almost 4 years. He owned all 15 locations of the grocery chain, having bought them from a retiring family business owner nearly a decade ago. The stores had done well, but lately, complaints had started piling in from the Northern District rude staff, long lines, ignored customers. Most of it was vague. Nothing concrete, nothing actionable, and that's what bothered him. "I'm tired of hearing filtered reports," he told his assistant. "I want to see it for myself." His plan was simple. He'd pose as a new part-time trainee at Store 11, an average-looking guy with a shaved beard, some gray at the temples, and a name tag that read Mike. No one at Store 11 had ever met him. Turnover had been high these past few years, and outside of the district manager, most of the staff at that location had never seen his face. He wore a faded polo, khakis, and a pair of worn sneakers. His ID had been set up under a fake profile by corporate HR, and the store manager was told he was a late-night bagger looking to pick up extra hours. Nothing more. When Miles walked in for his first shift, the floor was buzzing. Only 2 cashiers were open. A line of customers stretched past the candy racks. The manager, a sharp-jawed man with a Bluetooth in one ear, stood off to the side talking on the phone, not helping, not even looking. "Hey," Miles said, walking up to the front counter. "I'm the new guy." "Mike?" Yeah, the manager said without turning. "Go to lane 2, help Linda bag." Miles blinked. No welcome. No intro, no tour, just a wave and a grunt. Linda, the cashier at lane 2, looked exhausted. She had to be in her late 50s, glasses slipping down her nose and her back slightly hunched, but she forced a smile when he joined her. "You're the new kid," she said. "God bless, we're drowning here." Over the next 2 hours, Miles bagged groceries nonstop. He moved fast, kept his mouth shut, and watched everything. Linda stayed kind and patient to every customer, even the ones who were short-tempered from waiting. He saw her apologize to a woman whose milk had leaked, offering to replace it herself. No one else even looked her way. Then around 7, an elderly man shuffled up to lane 1 with a cart loaded with basics: canned beans, oatmeal, some frozen dinners. He looked to be in his 80s, thin, slow, and clearly in pain. He wore a faded army cap. "Excuse me, sir," the man said gently to the manager, who was leaning against the service desk scrolling through his phone. "Is there anyone who can help me unload my cart? I can't lift too well." The manager didn't look up. "Ask one of the baggers," he said flatly. "I'm busy." The old man hesitated. "I'm sorry, I didn't see anyone. You see me on my phone," the manager snapped. "I said ask someone else." Miles stopped mid-bag. He looked toward the man, then back to the manager. Linda whispered, "That's Darren, store lead. Don't get on his bad side." But Miles didn't move. He walked over to the old man. "Sir, I got you," he said. "Let me help." The man smiled, relieved. "Thank you, son. My back's not what it used to be." Miles unloaded the items gently, walked them to the register, and even helped the man to his car. The whole time, Darren didn't say a word, just kept scrolling. Back inside, Miles kept working. He saw an older woman asking for help finding the eggs and being brushed off by one of the floor's staff. A man in a wheelchair stuck behind a blocked aisle. No one moved to help. At the end of the night, Miles clocked out and sat in his car for a long while. He'd bought this chain to preserve the values the previous owners had built: community, care, service. But what he saw tonight, it didn't feel like that at all. The next day, he came back early. He walked straight to Linda. "You always this patient?" he asked casually. She chuckled. "Only way to survive here." "And the manager, Darren," she looked around and lowered her voice. "He's sharp, doesn't do much, always says we're short-staffed, but he cuts hours constantly, says it's to keep payroll down." Miles nodded. "How long you been here?" 7 years. "Never missed a shift." He looked at her, really looked at her. She wore cheap sneakers worn down at the heel. Her fingers were swollen from long hours, and yet she smiled through all of it. That night he saw it again. Another elderly woman standing at the end of a long checkout line, leaning on her cart. Darren walked past her without so much as a glance. She called out, "Excuse me?" He kept walking. Miles stepped in again, guiding her to a shorter lane, helping her unload. "You're very kind," she said. "Not many young people care these days." He smiled, but it didn't feel good. It felt heavy. When he got home that night, he pulled up the employee schedule. Darren had cut hours for 5 baggers in the last 2 weeks, all part-timers, all the younger or older ones. The next night would be his 3rd shift. And this time, he'd be ready to confront. Miles arrived before opening the next morning. The store lights were still dim, the automatic doors locked. A delivery truck was idling by the loading dock, and a young woman in a navy hoodie stood beside it, arms crossed, waiting. She had earbuds in but noticed Miles approaching and pulled one out. "You here to unload?" she asked. "I guess so." She gave a short nod. "I'm Tasha, I usually open." They don't schedule anyone else till 7. They spent the next 40 minutes breaking down pallets of bottled water, cereal, and dry goods. Tasha worked quickly, lifting with practiced precision. She didn't talk much, but when she did, she was sharp, knew the layout cold, knew what shelves were low, which ones needed rotation. When they finished loading the last cart, Tasha pushed her curls out of her face and leaned against the steel wall. "We're always behind on restocks," she said. "They keep cutting receiving hours. Darren says it's not worth having 2 people open, so it's just me. Sometimes I don't even get a break, but I guess that's just how it is." Miles didn't answer right away. "Ever mention that to corporate?" "Sure," she said. "2 months ago I emailed the district office. Got an auto reply and nothing else. I stopped bothering." The store opened at 7. By 7:15 the lines were already backed up. One register was running, the other cashier hadn't shown. Darren came in at 7:20 carrying a breakfast sandwich and coffee. He didn't acknowledge the crowd. He walked straight past the front and into the office. Tasha caught Miles's eye. "That's normal," she said quietly. "He says opening's not his job." By 8 Linda had arrived. She immediately picked up the pace at the second lane, greeting customers, scanning items fast but carefully. Miles joined her again. She didn't say much this time. Just worked. At 8:15, a young man in a green apron walked in. He looked barely out of high school, eyes sunken, shoulders hunched. He headed straight to the back, but Darren intercepted him halfway. "You're late again," Darren said, blocking the aisle. "I missed the bus. We've had this conversation, Marcus." "Do it again and you're off the schedule." "I'm trying, man. I can't control traffic. You can leave earlier. That's what adults do. Now go clean the bathrooms." Marcus walked off, jaw tight. "What's his deal?" Miles asked Tasha later as they shelved pasta. "He's a good kid," she said. "Takes care of his dad. Comes straight from school some days. Darren's been on him since day 1. Says he's lazy, but he's not. He just doesn't talk much." Miles's jaw worked. At 9:30, a woman in a wheelchair came in irregular, judging by how Linda greeted her by name. She struggled to reach a box of tea on a high shelf in the health aisle. Another employee walked by a tall man in a red vest with wireless headphones around his neck. He glanced her way but kept walking. Miles watched from the end of the aisle. The woman tried again, failed, then gave up and started to turn her chair. He stepped up and retrieved the box. "Thank you," she said, breathing hard. "That's the 3rd time I've had to chase someone down this week." "You shouldn't have to," she smiled. "Tell that to management." By 11, the meat section was a mess. The butcher hadn't come in and the shelves were half empty. A few customers had asked about it, but the only response they got was a shrug from one of the floor workers. Miles found Darren in the back office, feet up on the desk, watching something on his phone with the sound off. "Hey," Miles said, standing in the doorway. Darren didn't look up. "What?" "Customers are asking about the butcher counter. Anyone covering didn't come in." "Not my problem." "Should we post a sign?" Darren finally looked up. "You a supervisor now?" "No, just seems like people are getting frustrated." Darren stood and walked over, standing too close. "Look, I don't know who you think you are, but we don't need heroes here. You're a bagger, you bag." That's it. Miles didn't move. Understood, he said evenly, but he made a note. By midday things got worse. A mother came in with 2 children, one in a stroller, one walking. The older boy darted toward the snack aisle. As the mother tried to catch up, the boy bumped into a display and knocked over a box of granola bars. The same employee with the headphones, the one who ignored the woman in the wheelchair, watched the whole thing. He marched over, grabbed the box, and turned to the mother. "You gonna clean that up or just let your kid wreck the store?" The woman, clearly embarrassed, bent down to start picking up the bars. The baby started crying. The employee rolled his eyes and walked off. Miles approached her. "I'll take care of this," he said gently. She looked up, startled. "I'm sorry," she said. "He's just full of energy and no need to apologize." He cleaned up the mess himself. She thanked him quietly and left quickly. He found the employee near the stockroom, scrolling through his phone. "What's your name?" Miles asked. "Bryce. You've been here long, couple months." "Do you always talk to customers like that?" Bryce didn't answer, just shrugged. "You're done," Miles said. Bryce looked up. "What? You're being relieved immediately? You're a bagger." Miles stepped forward. "I'm the owner." Bryce's mouth opened, but nothing came out. "You treated a customer like a nuisance and you ignored someone who needed help. That's not what this business stands for. Clock out. You're done." Bryce hesitated, but Miles didn't move. Eventually, Bryce turned and walked toward the office. Miles turned to see Darren standing at the end of the aisle, arms crossed. "You can't just fire people." "I just did. You're not even supposed to be here." "You're right, I shouldn't have to be, but I've seen enough." Darren didn't speak. Miles walked past him, out to the front. Linda was still working, her back stiff, hands moving quickly. Tasha was helping a customer find cat food. Marcus was wiping down baskets near the entrance. He stepped into the middle of the store and raised his voice. "Everyone, can I have your attention?" Heads turned. Customers and employees looked up. "My name is Miles Booker. I own this store and 14 others like it." Silence. "I've spent the last 3 days here as a bagger. I've seen kindness and hard work. I've also seen neglect, disrespect, and complete disregard for customers and staff." He looked toward Linda. "This woman has held this store together with patience and care. She deserves far more than she's gotten." He turned to Tasha. "She shows up early, unloads shipments alone, and never complains." "That ends today." He looked at Marcus. "You've been treated unfairly. That ends now too." Then he turned to Darren, who had walked up behind him. "You're relieved of your duties, effective immediately." "What?" "You've ignored customers, disrespected staff. You've created a culture of indifference. I won't allow that. You're making a mistake." "No, the mistake was trusting you to lead." Darren stared at him, but Miles didn't wait. He turned back to the store. "I'll be spending the next week here. We'll be hiring more staff, scheduling fairly, training properly, and most importantly, we'll be treating people, customers and employees, with dignity." No one clapped, no one cheered, but Tasha nodded. Linda wiped her glasses, and Marcus stood a little straighter. Miles walked back behind the register and picked up another bag. He wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. The next morning, Miles arrived early again, this time not as a bagger, but as himself. A fresh name badge pinned to his chest read Miles Booker, owner, and his presence changed the atmosphere the moment he walked through the doors. The buzz of conversation among the early staff quieted. Eyes followed him, curious but unsure. He found Linda at Register 3, turning on her light. "You're starting early," he said. "I figured I'd beat the rush. We're always short on Saturdays." "You're not this time. I've brought in 3 temps from the Central District to help until we hire permanent staff. You'll have backup today." She blinked, surprised, then nodded. "That's a first. Also," he added, "you're off the register starting Monday. I want you mentoring new hires. Training lead if you're interested." She didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was quieter than usual. "No one's ever asked me to lead anything before. You've been doing it for years." Just without the title. Down in the back room, Tasha was already unloading a shipment of fresh produce. One of the temp workers had joined her, a soft-spoken man from the Midtown store who wasted no time getting to work. Miles approached as she was checking off the delivery manifest. "You've got help today," he said. "I noticed," she replied. "He's actually moving crates instead of texting." Miles glanced at the temp, who gave a small wave. "I've also approved your request for early shift support. Starting next week, you'll have a second opener." Tasha looked up. "You actually read that request?" "I read all of them last night. There were over 70 complaints, concerns, and suggestions buried in the system. Most were never acknowledged. That changes now." She leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "So what happens to the rest of us?" "The ones who have been pushing through while management sat around." "You're not being overlooked anymore," Miles said. "That's a promise." By mid-morning, the store was steady, not perfect but steadier. The 3 temp workers filled crucial gaps. One ran Register 5, another restocked dairy, and the third stayed near the entrance, helping customers find items. Marcus was on carts today. Miles caught up with him near the lot where he was gathering strays. "You doing okay out here?" Marcus shrugged. "Better than cleaning bathrooms. No one yells at me out here. You've been showing up consistently, that matters." "I try. I'm not looking for praise or anything. Just don't want to get sent home for being 5 minutes late." "You won't. You'll be scheduled fairly and we'll work around your school hours. Just keep showing up." Marcus nodded, unsure, but there was less tension in his shoulders than the day before. Back inside, Miles noticed something by the deli counter. A new face, a woman with short black hair and a clipboard, was speaking with a customer. She wore a plain white button-down with no store logo. Not an employee. He approached slowly. "Can I help you?" She looked up, calm and professional. "I'm from the Health and Safety Division." Anonymous complaint came in last week, something about improper food storage. Miles exhaled sharply. "Let me guess, no one followed up." She raised an eyebrow. "Not until I did." "I'll need to see your food logs and storage units." "I'll walk you through it myself." They reviewed the cooler units first. Everything looked clean, labels were current, and temperatures were within range. But when they reached the prep fridge behind the deli, the inspector paused. "This drawer is 10 degrees above acceptable, and there's raw chicken stored above prepped vegetables." Miles clenched his jaw. "I'll have it corrected immediately." He called over the deli worker, a man in his 20s who wore gloves but had his apron tied loosely around his waist, stained and wrinkled. "You manage this station?" "Yeah, I covered deli since Jamal left." "Were you trained on storage protocols?" "Not really. Darren just said to keep things stocked and don't run out of cold cuts." Miles turned to the inspector. "We'll close the deli for the day. I'll bring in a certified food handler from another store to retrain whoever's staying on." The worker looked up sharply. "Wait, does that mean I'm fired?" "No, it means you'll be properly trained or reassigned if needed, but this isn't negotiable." The inspector gave a short nod. "That's the right call." After she left, Miles went straight to the office. The door was open now, no more locked sessions with music playing. He stood inside and pulled up the staff files on the terminal. Darren had signed off on dozens of incomplete trainings. Many were marked self-certified, which meant no one had tested or supervised them. He called Central HR. "I need a full audit of the training records at Store 11. Also, flag any manager approvals made in the last 6 months without documentation." They confirmed they'd get started right away. Out on the floor, Miles noticed a boy standing near aisle 6, staring at a shelf of peanut butter. His mother stood nearby, holding a calculator and a small notepad, lips moving silently as she added numbers. The boy looked up at Miles and pointed to a jar. "That one's the one we usually get, but Mom says we can only buy the store brand this time." Miles glanced at the shelf. The name brand was only 80 cents more. The mother noticed and smiled politely. "We're just double-checking prices. It adds up." He nodded, then turned to the floor staffer nearby, a new hire from the temp pool. "Run a price check on this item. If it's over $4, override it to match the store brand." The employee hesitated. "Can I do that? I just authorized it." The mother looked stunned. "You don't have to do that." "We do," Miles said gently. "Good service means understanding when a little help goes a long way." She gave a quiet thank you and the boy lit up. Later that afternoon, Miles gathered the staff in the break room. The lights buzzed overhead and folding chairs scraped against the floor as they settled in. Some looked tired, others wary. "I'm not here to give a speech," Miles began. "I'm here to tell you what's changing." He went down the list. Open door policy reinstated. All hours to be approved based on actual floor needs, not budget caps. Any mistreatment of customers or coworkers would result in immediate dismissal. A formal recognition program would launch next quarter, starting with Linda, Tasha, and Marcus as its first nominees. Someone in the back raised a hand. It was Rosa, the cleaning staff supervisor. She rarely spoke up. "Does this mean we can finally replace the broken mop sink? It's been leaking for months." "Already ordered this morning," Miles said. "And starting next week, you'll have a second team member on weekends." She lowered her hand, visibly relieved. Another employee leaned forward. "What about raises? People have been stuck at the same pay for years." "We're conducting a wage review across all locations, but I'll be honest, not everyone will get a raise right away. What you will get is transparency. You'll see where you stand and what you can do to move up." No applause. Just nods. Honest talk, no promises he couldn't keep. After the meeting, Miles stepped out onto the floor one last time before heading home. A young man in a wheelchair was navigating the frozen section. This time, an employee was walking beside him, reading labels aloud at his request. Miles didn't interrupt. He just watched. Progress wasn't instant. It never was, but it had started. The following Monday started earlier than usual. Miles stood near the entrance of Store 11, clipboard in hand, watching each person who walked in. He wasn't there to supervise. He'd assigned a temporary operations lead from the downtown location for oversight, but he wanted to see something for himself. Linda arrived 10 minutes early. She wore a new pair of orthopedic shoes that had been covered by her health stipend. A policy Miles quietly rolled out after learning several employees had been working through foot and back pain without complaint. She gave him a brief nod of acknowledgement, nothing more. She didn't need to say anything. She was already moving forward. Tasha came in with her sleeves rolled up, pushing a two-wheeler stacked with produce from the early delivery. She didn't wait for direction. She scanned the manifest, marked what had arrived damaged, and flagged a few items for markdown clearance without needing approval. Miles watched as she handed a new hire a laminated map of the store layout she had made herself over the weekend. "Color-coded by temperature zone," she said. "You zone right, you don't waste time backtracking." The young man looked at the sheet, then back at her. "You made this." "I got tired of people guessing where frozen peas go." Miles walked over once she was done. "You should be training shift leads," he said. "I'm not trying to climb ladders. You don't have to, but if you want to shape how things run, I'll make sure you're paid for that influence." She let out a short breath through her nose. "Then yeah. I'll train." In the back office, the new operations lead, Carla, reviewed the previous week's audit notes. She was sharp, even-tempered, and had already removed a redundant ordering system that Darren had implemented just to avoid cross-checking with the auto-replenishment software. Carla looked up as Miles entered. "Your inventory shrink rate here was almost double the network average. That's not just theft, it's neglect." "I expected as much," Miles said. "How bad is morale from your view?" "Uneven. Some are cautious, but the ones who have been trying all along. They're stepping up." "Anyone resisting?" "One, Bryce's replacement, a guy named Kevin. He's been cutting corners on stocking and argued with Tasha twice this morning." Miles didn't hesitate. "Pull him off the floor, interview him. If he's not aligned, we move on." Carla nodded. "Already done." As the day picked up, customers trickled in steadily. Miles walked the floor not to monitor but to observe. An elderly woman asked where the vinegar was. Instead of pointing, a new trainee walked her halfway down the aisle. Two boys were roughhousing near the cereal display. The cashier at lane 4 stepped out, knelt down to their level, and gently told them to stay near their mother. When a customer asked to speak to a manager, Carla responded personally. She didn't deflect. She listened. Around noon, Marcus arrived after school. He clocked in, picked up a dustpan, and started sweeping the front entrance without being told. He didn't see Miles standing nearby. "You planning on staying part-time through the semester?" Miles asked once Marcus looked up. Marcus hesitated. "Yeah. But I can do more during winter break." "Good. You've been consistent. That matters." "I just want to keep the job." "You've earned more than that," Miles said. "Carla's going to put you on a rotation through different departments. We want to see where you thrive." Marcus's eyes flicked down for a moment, then back up. "No one's ever said that to me." Miles didn't answer. He just nodded and turned away. In the break room, Rosa was sitting with two janitorial trainees, walking them through a checklist of what chemicals could and couldn't be mixed. She had hand-drawn illustrations to go with each section, simple, clear visuals showing what a clean mop head looked like versus one that needed replacing, how to spot tile mildew behind freezers, and what to do when a customer vomited in an aisle. "No shortcuts," she said. "You don't skip steps because it's gross. You wear gloves and you get it done right." Miles waited until the trainees left. "You really put effort into that training sheet." "No one gave me one when I started," Rosa said. "Had to figure it out myself." "I figured they shouldn't have to." "You interested in leading the janitorial program across all locations?" Rosa blinked. "Me, you've already built the foundation. I want to formalize it. Paid training hours, oversight." Her voice was quiet. "I never thought someone upstairs even knew who I was." "I didn't," Miles said, "and that's my failure, not yours." Later in the afternoon, a man entered wearing a worn army jacket. He moved slowly, a cane in one hand, a small shopping list in the other. Miles recognized him immediately. It was the same man Darren had dismissed on Miles's first undercover shift. This time, as the man neared the produce section, Linda stepped away from her and walked over. "Need a hand, Mr. Hanley?" He smiled, a little embarrassed. "Only if you're not busy." "Always busy." "But I've got time." She walked with him, offering her arm when he reached for a head of cabbage. Another employee appeared behind them with a cart. "Want me to wheel that for you?" Mr. Hanley looked stunned. "Sure, if that's not too much trouble." "It's not," the employee said. "We're glad you're here." Miles stayed out of view, watching. That one moment, quiet and unscripted, told him more than any report could. At the end of the day, he called the team into the produce section. Not the break room. He wanted customers to see this too. "I won't make a habit of speeches," he said, "but I want to close the loop on why I came here in the first place." The staff gathered, some resting arms on carts, others standing still. There were problems. Not just systems-level mistakes, but failures of care, customers ignored. Staff pushed to the edge. "I went undercover because I couldn't trust the filtered version of the truth anymore." A few employees exchanged glances. No one spoke. But what I found here beneath the neglect was grit. People who kept showing up, helping when no one was watching. That's what we're building on, not just fixing what was broken, but strengthening what was already working. He looked at Tasha. "Your prep guides are being standardized across the chain." Then to Linda. "You'll be hosting monthly training sessions for new hires." And finally to Marcus. "You've got a mentor now. Carla's already scheduled your cross-training." There was no applause, just a stillness. A quiet sense that something had shifted permanently. A customer nearby, an older woman with headphones around her neck, leaned over to a man bagging her groceries. "Who's that?" the man answered without looking up. "The guy who owns the place." She watched for a second, then nodded. "Well, about time." Miles turned back toward the front. The store wasn't perfect. It was still short-staffed in a few departments. Shelves weren't always aligned to planograms. But the people here, the ones who cared, finally had the support they needed. He didn't need to be undercover anymore. The truth had already come out. Now it was about what came next. And this time he wasn't looking from a distance. He was right there, where he should have been all along.